All right. Who's your earliest crush you can remember?
Oh, gosh.
This is crazy to do publicly.
Wait, this is crazy. This was in elementary
And
school
are
and
they watching?
kindergarten.
Shout them out.
Because someone's gonna probably know.
I have two.
Is your childhood crush
Oh
watching?
no, I
I
know.
have two.
Mine.
I guarantee you mine's not.
Oh, I got to get one.
I'm gonna say
Curiosity.
Shelby and Bailey, and I'm gonna say this.
Are we doing
Two.
this? Are we
What-
running it right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I would do to flirt with girls in kindergarten
This is what
is
we wanna
give
know.
them piggybacks. I would give them piggybacks around the playground, and I
Hollis
thought I
probably
was
still
him.
does. You probably still do.
What? I thought I was him. I would give a piggyback. I'd stop and be like, "I'm the coolest kid in school."
So y'all, if Hollis offers you a piggyback ride, you
He has a
know
crush
what
on
it
you.
is.
TJ, who's yours?
Honestly, I don't even remember any girls, since I met my one true love. You know what I'm saying? Since I met my
Aw.
wifey.
Wow,
My memory is just so bad. It don't have room
that's-
for all these,
Lo, I hope you're listening. That's same for me.
Wow.
Same for me.
That's
What?
what I
I gotta be the only one? Why does that always happen?
Welcome to this
Why am I what?
Good News Brand podcast. This is great.
This is Talon.
This is TJ.
This is Hollis.
This is a great week, y'all. We're talking about Spiritually Whole in Him by President Camille Johnson.
Okay, well, this week particularly, I'm really glad that we're kind of doing a new way of talking about talks that it's just literally like whatever was most applicable to us. Because I'm going to be honest, the part of this talk that like really hit me is the most irrelevant part to probably everyone else on earth. But it is how she ended with her testimony. And she just said, she goes through and the whole talk is about like you being able to like give your life to Jesus and like him heal the spiritual parts of you, even if it's like not exactly what you expected or whatever. Just like honestly, when I like listened and read through this, like all I could think is truly just like allowing Jesus into your life, into every part of your life and accepting what that looks like, having experiences with him. But the most powerful part to me was at the very, very end when she just said, I humbly add my testimony to Mary's. And I like paused and it was the most beautiful line ever to me because how cool to be able to put yourself in that type of company. And she is talking about Mary, who was like the first witness of Jesus Christ. And she knows Jesus, the same Jesus that Mary knew. And their experiences were very different. Mary like was there in the resurrection and witnessed all of it and was there with Jesus, was healed physically by him, like with him and in person with him. But she, like President Johnson, also has had experiences with Jesus that meant something. And I like paused when I was listening to it in my car and I like paused and I started thinking of like, who else like can I put my name next to in that testimony? And I was thinking about like Queen Esther, who like got to experience God showing up in her story and changing the lives and saving people and being a part of the grand and marvelous things that God has done. And what about David, who like got to conquer something that was way out of his league and he saw God show up for him when he had no chance at like beating the impossible? And what about Peter, who would say like, oh, I did the impossible with Jesus. Jesus was my best friend. He was with me through all of the greatest experiences of my entire life. And Mary, who said, he saved me, he changed me, and I watched him show up again. And how powerful that we get to know that same Jesus and that we can attach our names in the same way. And I was just thinking for the rest of my life, I want to experience moments with Jesus that at the end I will be able to say, I want to humbly add my testimony that I know the same Jesus that Mary knew. And I know the same Jesus that Peter knew. And I know the same Jesus that David knew. And I know the same Jesus that Queen Esther knew. I know him too because of what I've gone through in my life.
Whoa, that was sick.
Yeah, so kind of
That
like
was sick because that's such a fire line that I didn't even notice.
yeah,
you
just like
know?
tiny at the end. But it
Wait,
was just
can I
like
ask
really
a question
special.
that I think is so fun? Because you went through those people and I was like, man, I bet all of them would have said something a little bit different, about Jesus. I bet David would have been like, Jesus is the one who takes down giants, and Esther would have been like the one, oh, he backs you up in the scariest situations. Daniel's like, oh, he stands with you in lion dens. You know what I mean? All
Yeah.
of them, I feel like would have said something different. And so what would you say if you had to narrow yours down? All of you guys, not just Grace, but if you guys had to narrow yours down of your testimony of Jesus, of like, oh, this is what I would add about him. What would yours be?
This one might just, I wish something sounded cooler, but this sounds the coolest anyway to me, is that he's a God who walks with me, man. He's a God who is willing to take my hand and walk with me through bad decisions, through my past, through weaknesses, through all kinds of things, through temptations and everything. And he's a God who's willing to walk with me, hold my hand, and help me get to the place where I know that I want to go and that I need to go. He's a God who walks with me.
I like that one, bro. I like that.
Yeah.
I would say the testimony that I would want to add is that he makes things better than you could ever imagine. And I think that is how Jesus has showed up in my life. That I will have plans and I will have dreams and I will think that something is a really, really good idea. And then Jesus shows up in my story and he makes it so much better than anything I could ever dream up. And I think I've seen it on like the big scale of things. Like I think little high school Grace was pretty apathetic. Like I didn't really care about much and I didn't like really have a lot of hopes and dreams. And like I think if 16-year-old Grace could see 25-year-old Grace, like she would weep. Like she wouldn't even be able to believe like what Jesus has done in my life and the dreams that he has like brought to life that I couldn't have ever even imagined were real. But I think he also does that on a day-to-day basis. Like I think the greatest days of my life have started out really ordinary until Jesus showed up. And he shows up with lucky pennies and he shows up with fireworks and he shows up through friends and through like going to the gas station and like getting a little Coke Zero in the fountain and all of the littlest things in the world. But like I think through and through, the Jesus I know makes things better than I could ever have dreamt of.
I love that. I thought of a couple. I thought of a God of the almost and a God of closed doors. And what I love about that last one is I feel like he's closed some doors in my life to open the right ones, which I've loved. And I feel like I've seen God in the almost so many times in my life, where I almost got in something in several areas of my life so he could show me what actually I deserve or what actually I need in my life. And I feel like God shows up in the almost so many times is because, hey, I know you love this, but I can't wait to show you this. And that's just been a beautiful pattern in my life that I've really loved.
That's cool. That's cool.
What about you, bro?
I just asked the question.
Okay, you got to answer too,
it's
dude.
your answer.
For me, I would say it's the miracle I'm obsessed with is water to wine. I would testify of a savior that takes average, bland things and turns them into something better. Because I've just seen him do that with me and I see him continually doing that with me. And I feel like my high school life was pretty good, but I don't feel like I was super hyped about who I was, you know? And I remember coming back from my mission and I felt so good about who I was. I felt so good about the man that I'd become. And I feel like now part of me is that I always want to be better. And I just watch him tweak and change and mold and shape me. And I like who I'm becoming. Like I like the trajectory that I'm on, you know? And I just feel like that's happened as I've focused on him and learned about him and tried to turn to him and invite him into my life. And I think it's why I'm obsessed with that miracle. I'm like, he's turning me into fine wine, y'all. He's turning me into something special. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, he's aging you like fine wine too.
Yeah. I think, wow, that's crazy. I think it's one of my favorite things so whenever I've run into like old friends from high school, the amount of times that I've heard, man, you're so different from high school. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. And every time I just want to be like, oh yeah, that's Jesus. That's what he's done for me. And yeah, I that's something that I want to testify to anybody of. If you bring him into your life, he can help you become a version of yourself that you love, that you're really happy about.
And I love seeing that with the examples that President Johnson makes with Paul and Mary. And when she talked about them, it made me so grateful that Heavenly Father made the effort and let these people's stories really shine through the scriptures. Like I love that we got Paul, right? He says that he has a thorn in his side and he has weaknesses and he struggles and he has a past, you know? I mean, he was out here trying to like kill Christians, like. And then you got Mary, where she has her past too, and she's been through crazy things that we can't even imagine. And I love this theme that President Johnson brought up, where even though they weren't whole physically, even though they weren't whole emotionally, mentally, Jesus made them whole spiritually, and he used them, and God used them to do amazing, miraculous things. And I love paying attention to that. And then that like reaffirms like my confidence in God's ability to take me and to make me whole, even though I have temptations and weaknesses and struggles, that he could take me and do, you know, big things with me and use me I love that from the talk too.
TJ, that was one of my favorite thoughts that she had in there. She says this line that goes exactly with everything that you're saying when she says, we can be whole even while we wait for healing. Because I think there's something in our minds, like, I can't be completely healed until this mental, physical, emotional, spiritual gap is healed. Then I will be healed by Christ. But she emphasizes again and again, you can be spiritually whole while you are waiting for the healing to come. And that just hits me really hard because I feel like there's so many things that we wait for in this life. And we're like, okay, once that happens, then I will be complete with God. It's like, no, that can happen right now. And he will be with you every single step of the journey on your way to healing.
Yeah, I think it's such a cool thought of just wherever you're at. I think so many times there's certain things that we're asking God for so much, whether it is healing or whether it is you want to get married, you know what I mean? Or you want just the next stage of your life. I think there's certain things that we ask and ask and ask and ask. But when she gave this talk, I remember just thinking, whoa, I can be whole right now. And it hit me so hard. And it just made me want to not neglect that because I'm so caught up in that next thing that I want. And to me, that's one of the most exciting things that like, oh, I can go home tonight and really be whole. I can connect to Jesus in a way. I can turn to him. I can invite him in a way that I'm made whole spiritually. That doesn't need to be put off. I don't need to wait for that. And there's other things in my life that I will have to wait for. There's other things that will take time. And in all of our lives, there's things that we'll wait for. But I think if you understand, if you are whole in your waiting, the waiting is a whole lot better. Whoa, that was kind of crazy.
Whoa.
That kind of just came, y'all. That was crazy.
That was
Oh,
nice,
that's
bro.
crazy.
That was nice. And it's true. A whole lot better. It's so true.
I feel like it's so interesting because I feel like I've seen that a lot this year of me like kind of wanting for things that I don't necessarily have at this very minute. But it's been cool because I was actually looking through my journal the other day. And one thing that I noticed is over and over and over the days where I always like write, like I always end the day and I'm like, this was the best day ever. And those days are always the days where I feel like God worked through me or that I experienced Jesus. And I think that that is how you live a life of wholeness. That is how you are spiritually whole. Is maybe it's
That's
not
so true.
yeah. Like maybe it's not about outcomes and maybe it's not about like what you wish was happening, but like maybe it is getting to experience life with Jesus and seeing him work in other people's lives and in your lives.
It's so true because I'm remembering this time when I was 21 years old. I had nothing figured out in my life, y'all, like literally nothing. But I remember this time that God worked through me and I was so happy. Life was good. Everything was all right, even though nothing was figured out in my life.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I remember this past week, I was like gone away for like 2 weeks and I lost my phone or my phone stopped working and I couldn't use it. And I feel like sometimes I had these gaps that I would fill with my phone. I was like, oh, I need to fill this with this. But not having the phone actually helps so much because I feel like I was filled with experiencing Jesus in people, the moment. And that's when I felt most whole because I wasn't looking at other places but for him.
And I think that that looks unique for every single person. And
Mm.
how Jesus shows up in all of our lives and how he makes us whole is very different and very unique. And I
Well,
think
even just hearing all our stories, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Of how we would testify of him, of how we've seen him. It was so different for all of us. You
And I
know?
think that's the most beautiful part is that I think sometimes it's frustrating that we feel like, oh, I don't know how God's going to show up in my story. I don't know how Jesus is going to heal me, but how beautiful that he knows exactly what you need. And how cool that at the end of our lives that we can add our names to a list of so many incredible people who got to experience the same Jesus that we got to experience in this one.
He knew that there'd be pain and suffering. He knew that there'd be blood and tears. And he still made the earth beneath us. But then he told us not to fear. He would take it all and wash it all away. If we will believe in his name. He's the healer, the deliverer, from all pains, from all burdens and scars. When you're hurting, find his mercy. He will fix every piece of your heart. He's the healer, the deliverer, from all pains, from all burdens and scars. When you're hurting, find his mercy, and he will fix every piece of your heart.
We'd love to hear all your thoughts, insights, everything you're thinking when you studied this talk for yourself. So head over to our This Is Kingdom Instagram and mention what you're kind of thinking about in the comments. We love to hear it, and we'll see you next week.